Coming up today on News 3 Now live at 4, the candidates racing in the final days of the presidential campaign are in Texas today.
Plus, a combination of misinformation and foreign medals are providing a challenge to maintain the security of the votes.
And later, it's one of the biggest talking points in this year's election, reproductive rights. We hear from Minnesota First Lady Gwen Walz on her own fertility struggles. Those stories and more coming up next on News 3 Now live at 4.
I'm Eric Hovde, and I approve this message. I was 27 years old, and the doctor told me I have MS. You quickly realize what's the most important things in life: family, friendships, love, helping other people. It makes you much more empathetic and compassionate to those that are struggling and suffering. I wanted to achieve my goals and dreams, but I wanted to take my resources and save as many children as I possibly could.
Good afternoon and welcome to the special edition of News 3 Now live at 4, Battleground, Wisconsin. Every Friday until November 5th, we're dedicating the entirety of Live at 4 to election coverage here in Wisconsin and around the country.
That's right. Viewers have told us they want to be more informed when they head to the polls, and this show is designed to do just that. We start with the race for the White House, going through the Lone Star State. Both presidential candidates are stumping in Texas this week.
Well, Texas is not a battleground state. Each candidate is using the visit as part of a different approach to appeal to voters in these final days of campaigning. Nicole Skanga has more details from the White House.
Former President Donald Trump arrived in Austin, Texas, focusing his final pitch to voters on his signature issue, the border.
Over the past 4 years, this state has become Kamala's staging ground to import her army of migrant gangs and illegal alien criminals into every state.
Trump is in Austin today to tape a podcast with Joe Rogan. The comedian has one of the most popular podcasts, especially among men, a demographic Trump has extensively targeted.
Get your husband, Hank, get the hell out of the couch, Hank. Get up, get that big fat of yours. We're gonna go and vote for the president.
Vice President Kamala Harris is also in Texas today, a state her campaign doesn't expect to win, but they're calling it the ground zero of the anti-abortion movement and think highlighting reproductive rights will help them win the battleground states.
Tonight, we will be discussing the impact of that, not only to the women of Texas and their families, but to people around the country because of Trump abortion bans.
Harris leaned into star power at last night's rally in Atlanta with Tyler Perry, Spike Lee, Samuel L. Jackson, and Bruce Springsteen.
I'm casting my vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz.
She's making the case that Trump is only interested in vengeance, not the people.
It's either Donald Trump in there stewing over his enemies list, or me working for you.
Tonight in Houston, she'll get help from the Beehive when Beyonce joins her on stage. Nicole Skanga, CBS News, the White House.
Willie Nelson and Jessica Alba will also be on stage with Harris tonight, as will Democratic Senate candidate Colin Allred, who is also in a tight race to unseat Republican Ted Cruz. We're also learning Vice President Harris will be coming to UW-Madison for a Get Out the Vote rally next Wednesday. During the rally, several musical guests will be performing, including Remy Wolf, Mumford & Sons, and Gracie Abrams. In Milwaukee this week, Second Gentleman Doug Emhoff held a rally for his wife, Vice President Harris. During the event, he attacked former President Trump for his position on women's issues. He also encouraged voters to get to the polls as early voting started on Tuesday.
People need to cut through this Trumpian fog, all this gaslighting and disinformation and misinformation that he's just throwing out there right now. So we need all of you out here in Wisconsin, because we got to win Wisconsin, and when we win Wisconsin, she's going to be president.
Also attending the event, Milwaukee Bucks head coach Doc Rivers and former NBA star and Milwaukee native Terry Porter.
Former President Trump will be returning to Wisconsin next week. The Trump-Vance campaign announcing today that Trump plans on holding a rally in Green Bay on Wednesday. That rally is scheduled for 6 p.m. at the Resch Center. Trump is expected to talk about inflation there. Doors open at 2. The former president is also planning to hold a rally in Milwaukee at the Pfizer Forum next Friday. That event is scheduled to begin at 7 that evening. The Harris-Walz campaign responding to the upcoming Green Bay visit, saying, quote, Wisconsinites know that Trump threatens the stability and security of hardworking families to serve himself. And that's why earlier today, Green Bay's Republican State Senator, there we go, Robert Cowles joined other Republicans, independents, and Democrats to endorse Vice President Harris, end quote.
Meanwhile, Republican vice presidential nominee J.D. Vance is stopping in Racine next week. The Ohio senator will be in the Racine Memorial Hall Monday afternoon at about 5:30. He is expected to talk about Trump's economic plans compared to that of the Biden administration. Senator Vance is also expected to encourage Wisconsinites to vote early for the Trump-Vance ticket. Republican Senate candidate Eric Hovde is making 2 stops on his Time for Change tour. Hovde is visiting one of the companies in De Pere on Friday morning. He toured the business and spoke with employees. Hovde then joined former Democratic Representative Tulsi Gabbard at an event called the Trump Unity Event. Recent polls show a close race between Hovde and incumbent Senator Tammy Baldwin.
You know what we have? We have the issues and we have you. And if all of you get out and vote, and then you go get your friends, you get your neighbors, you get your colleagues, you get the people you go hunting or fishing with or play golf with or you go to church with, and you go bring them on our side, guess what? We're going to win, and we're going to win big. And then we're going to get on with taking back this country.
Meanwhile, at a recent Trump rally in North Carolina, Gabbard announced she officially has joined the Republican Party. Gabbard is already a member of Trump's transition team and reportedly has been eyeing a potential position in Trump's White House.
Former President Donald Trump's lawyers are asking a federal court in D.C. to dismiss the January 6th election subversion case. In a filing Thursday, his legal team said the office of special counsel Jack Smith is unconstitutional. Trump's lawyers argued that Smith's appointment by Attorney General Merrick Garland is invalid because it didn't receive congressional approval. They also asked the judge to tell Smith to stop spending public funds on his office. Meanwhile, former President Trump says he plans to fire special counsel Jack Smith if he wins on Election Day. On Thursday, Trump told a conservative radio host he would use presidential powers to, quote, fire him within 2 seconds if he gets another term in office. If the former president were to fire Smith, the Department of Justice and Trump's attorney general could drop the charges against him and end those court cases.
With early voting well underway in many states, officials across the country are working to maintain the security of this presidential election while fighting misinformation and foreign adversaries attempting to meddle.
Reporter Brian Abel is in Washington with the latest on efforts to ensure your vote is counted.
We have multiple layers of security around several systems.
Battleground Georgia revealing Wednesday it successfully fended off a cyber attack this month from what officials there believe to be a foreign entity who targeted the state's absentee ballot request website. Though federal officials haven't yet confirmed its origin, it would be the latest in a slew of attempts by foreign adversaries to meddle in the 2024 election. Microsoft reporting it detected probing of election-related websites in multiple U.S. swing states by Iranian government-linked hackers in a possible effort to discover vulnerabilities. Iran denies the Microsoft assessment. Russia also reported to be at the forefront of misinformation campaigns attempting to influence the election. Just this week, U.S. intelligence assessed that Russian operatives created, then amplified false social media content meant to smear Democratic vice presidential candidate Tim Walz. Officials are also combating homegrown misinformation intended to stoke fears of the election not being secure, including false claims that voting machines were flipping votes in states like Nevada and Georgia. A Georgia election official explaining how an inaccurate rumor started.
There was a senior citizen voter who printed her ballot and said, this isn't who I chose. And they followed the procedure. They went to the poll manager. They said, let's go over here and we'll spoil this ballot. We'll let you vote again. She told a couple people that story. It turned into a post. And then it was picked up by other people and said machines are flipping votes, which is nobody claimed that actually happened.
Officials adding there is zero evidence of machines flipping votes. In Washington, Brian Abel.
Meanwhile, the U.S. Postal Service is battling claims of widespread fraud in mail-in ballots, and it's saying it's taking extraordinary measures to ensure the secure and timely delivery of all 2024 election mail.
To Arizona now, where authorities say more than a dozen electoral ballots were damaged when someone set fire to a U.S. Postal Service collection box in Phoenix. It happened early Thursday morning. A Phoenix fire captain said the person started the fire inside a drive-up collection box, which is on post office property. Crews got the box open and put out the flames. 20 ballots and other pieces of mail were damaged. A suspect is now in custody.
To know that it happened here, that doesn't give me a sense of security.
You're interfering with people's right for their voice to be heard. So, yeah, they should be arrested.
The 35-year-old man arrested Thursday told authorities he committed the crime because he, quote, wanted to be arrested. Investigators now believe the crime was not politically motivated.
The Pennsylvania Supreme Court says voters whose mail-in ballots are rejected for defects should be allowed to vote provisionally. The case is out of Butler County, where residents sued after the county refused to count their provisional ballots in the 2024 primary. The ruling could give thousands of Pennsylvanians the opportunity to vote in person, even if their mail ballots were disqualified due to errors. The provisional vote would only count if the person's mail ballot had been rejected. Republicans plan to appeal the decision. A federal judge is halting Virginia's purge of the state voter rolls ahead of the election. Today, the judge ordered election officials to restore the registrations of about 1,600 people who were removed based on indications they might not be citizens. The judge said the purge violated a federal law that blocks systematic voter roll removals 90 days before a federal election. The law, however, allows a review of individual registrations. Agricultural policy has been at the center of campaigns, especially here in Wisconsin, and at the center of the debate in Washington right now is, of course, the Farm Bill.
Yeah, that's right. But it's not just about farmers. It's a broad, expansive bill that impacts all of us here in Wisconsin. So what's all in it? Well, Tina Hinchley is a dairy farmer in eastern Dane County who also advocates for the Farm Bill through the Wisconsin Farmers Union.
It's a huge bill, and labeling it a farm bill often has people thinking that the farmers are the ones that are getting all of those funds, and it's not so. 80% of the farm bill is going to be nutrition.
Now, that includes nutritional programs like SNAP benefits or food stamps and support for women and infant children, also called WIC. The Farm Bill is negotiated every 5 years, and it's up this year. Well, lawmakers in D.C. are working to come to an agreement before the end of this year.
Street maintenance is one of several services that could potentially be impacted by the City of Madison referendum. That referendum is asking voters to raise the property tax levy to address a $22 million structural deficit in the city's operating budget. If the referendum does not pass, the Madison Street Division will lose brush drop-off site availability. The free mulch program and brush collection will be restricted to just 3 times at the curb. The department spokesperson says it's up to the residents to determine if they want to keep those services.
These are the choices that we have to make without sacrificing some public safety and other really core needs that we have, because otherwise it's do we pothole fewer streets? Do we plow a lot slower? Do we make these other choices, or do we have to stop doing brush for a little bit? Well, this is the choice that we went with.
Street maintenance isn't the only department that could feel the cuts if the referendum fails. Library programming and hours could be cut as well as some of the hours and routes of Metro bus services. Well, we are less than 2 weeks from Election Day, and the candidates and their surrogates continue to focus on Wisconsin.
Minnesota First Lady Gwen Walz, wife of Vice Presidential nominee Tim Walz, sat down with our Maddie Heinz to talk about campaigning, family, and reproductive rights.
I'm joined by the First Lady of Minnesota, wife of Minnesota Governor and Democratic Vice Presidential nominee Tim Walz, Mrs. Gwen Walz. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Maddie. Please call me Gwen.
Will do. So let's get right into it. Your role on the campaign trail, the spouse of a major party candidate, that's a largely undefined role, and you've seen this sudden thrust onto the national stage, this nonstop campaign. What does that look like for you, and how do you define the role for yourself?
Well, first, could I just say hi, Wisconsin? Hi, neighbors. It's good to be with you. So the great part about being on the campaign and even being on the national campaign, which has been a change, has been I've gotten to start in places like Wisconsin and be there often. And that feels very much like Minnesota. Our values are very similar. We care about the same things. We have middle class concerns, and that has made the adjustment easier. I cannot tell a lie. It is a big stage, and the stakes could not be higher. And so I have just said, let me know what I can do to be helpful in this race. And, you know, my mom has this saying she would say to me all the time. If you've heard me on the trail, she would say, Gwen, do the work that's in front of you. And with this campaign, it has been easy to define the work in front of me, which has led me to traveling to so many states and meeting so many great people and talking about issues that are important to me as a mom, as a teacher, as a first lady, but as a sister and a friend, and you know, as a good neighbor.
I want to talk reproductive rights for a second. You and Governor Walz have been a proud and public example of alternative methods to starting a family. What has it meant for you to have those personal, pretty intimate details of your journey so public and so political?
Well, Maddie, this was a story that Tim and I really didn't talk about for 20 years, even to people who were really close to us, because it was something we went through, and you know, it was challenging and it was hard. And we, you know, we have two beautiful children, Hope and Gus, and we're so grateful for that. I'm a pretty private person, I would say, and so to tell that story was not, again, easy, but I decided I had to. And Tim felt the same way, and that we were going to do it. And we were going to do it at every chance we could, because we wanted to make a difference. And we wanted everyone who wanted the option to make their own choice in reproductive freedom, in reproductive rights, to have the same rights that we did, whether that would be to seek fertility treatments or birth control or not having children at all. So I tell that story for that very purpose, because I trust women and I think it's important, and I have a platform to say that. And I am advocating for reproductive freedom for each and every person in this country.
Well, Ms. Gwen Walz, the First Lady of Minnesota, thank you so much for joining us today.
Maddie, thanks so much, and let's get out there and vote, everybody.
Well, there's still more ahead on Live at 4.
After the break, political reporter Will Keneally sits down with a couple of political experts to get their thoughts on some recent developments in the 2024 election. We'll be right back.
During COVID, Joan Balwig took $500,000 in federal loans she never paid back. Then voted to block assistance to help other Wisconsin businesses grow. Joan Balwig, out for herself, not you.
I'm sick and tired of getting ripped off by career politicians. And Tammy Baldwin, she's one of the worst. Baldwin's in bed with Wall Street. While she sleeps in her girlfriend's $1 million condo in New York City, Wisconsin families are getting hammered by high inflation and handouts for illegal immigrants. Tammy and her girlfriend are living large while Wisconsin families foot the bill. Frankly, it's time for Tammy Baldwin to go.
I'm Eric Hovde, and I approve this message. Join my team and give today.
With high inflation, working families like mine are hurting, and Kamala Harris helped create this mess. Now, while Americans struggle, Kamala spent our tax dollars putting illegal immigrants up in hotel rooms, and she supported spending our tax dollars to give illegals sex changes. It's not just liberal, it's insane. Kamala Harris can never, ever be our president.
Preserve America PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
We hold the most powerful tool to make democracy work for Black Americans, and that's our vote. Registering to vote takes less than 10 minutes. Help protect democracy. Go to myvote.wisconsin.gov to check your voter registration status. In-person absentee voting begins Tuesday, October 22nd. City of Beloit buses will provide free rides on Election Day. Let's be all in and vote on November 5th.
Get cozy in Door County with a stay at Open Hearth Lodge. Find relaxation in our King Whirlpool rooms, or enjoy time with your family in one of our dog-friendly suites. At Open Hearth Lodge, stay active with our exercise facility and start your day with a continental breakfast. Enjoy our indoor pool and hot tub and share stories around one of our outdoor fire pits. Open Hearth Lodge, a Door County getaway with all the comforts of home.
I'm Tammy Baldwin, and I approve this message.
Eric Hovde owns a $3 billion California bank. That's right, he owns it.
And a $7 million mansion on the beach.
Eric Hovde proposed $4 trillion in new tax breaks for rich guys just like him.
And to pay for it, Hovde would cut Social Security by 28%.
Slash Medicare 25%.
And veterans benefits 40%.
Outrageous. Now we know what's wrong with Eric Hovde. This guy is not for us.
This is China, and this is Wisconsin. Joan Ballweg invested thousands of dollars in Chinese companies, but voted against using state funds to help grow companies here in Wisconsin. Joan Ballweg, out for herself, not you.
We're back with our Battleground Wisconsin coverage as Vice President Kamala Harris continues her campaign. She's recently picked up an unlikely supporter, former Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney.
Yeah, Cheney has been campaigning for Harris in several swing states, offering Harris as an alternative to Republicans who may not be sold on former President Trump. Political reporter Will Keneally sits down with our political panel for their take on the matter.
Who won the week? We'll start with Brandon.
You know, it's getting tougher as we get closer to Election Day to say who won the week. At least Wisconsin can say we've had a flurry of candidates come in. You've seen Obama, Walz, Harris is here, you know, lots of surrogates. So in that sense, you know, I'm gonna score the voters won the week because they're having opportunities. If they haven't made up their mind yet, this is at least one opportunity where they can either see it, hear it in the news, maybe they're gonna go to a rally, but that's kind of what you got coming for the rest of the week.
Yeah, and Dave, who won the week in your mind?
Yeah, I think Brandon's right. You know, Hillary Clinton famously didn't come to Wisconsin general election, and Harris has apparently decided she's going to make up for that because by last count, she was here 17 times, and that's just Harris herself, not counting surrogates. So I think that's right. I think Harris has maybe had a little bit of a better couple weeks, simply because she's clearly tried to dispel this idea that she doesn't have enough substance, that she's running from the press. So she's really stepped up the media blitz. And generally, I think she's handled it pretty well. So, you know, Trump sort of had his usual weirdness. He stepped up the insults, which I don't think helped him. And then overall, I think Harris has come off as a candidate of substance.
Yeah, Dave, I'll counter that a little bit in that a couple of weeks ago, it was clear that the Harris campaign had kind of plateaued. And they tried to do a recovery with some of those, you know, narrowly designed interviews with, you know, Colbert and Stearns and all those kind of people. And you know, it helped targeting, but the campaign seemed to had plateaued. They seemed, one person referred to it as frozen. And that happens. I mean, that happens with all campaigns at some point, you hit the wall. One of the things that she's tried to do again in Wisconsin this past week is this notion of, let's put a couple of Republicans who hate Trump and they're going to vote against Trump, they're going to vote for her. And, you know, whether or not that's a message that sells, and I put that in what I said earlier, it's kind of the education for voters to kind of take on. But, you know, I don't know if that's the closeout for the rest of the campaign. It got her back on the trail, but I think she had a couple of tough weeks getting there. But this is, if you're going to get there, this is the time to get back on board.
What did you make of that Walz-Obama visit?
Well, I think it was good. One question I keep having, though, is why they do keep coming back to Madison. I think we're already at 11, you know, to go back to the old Spinal Tap movie. We're at 11. I don't know that we can, that another Obama, Walz, Harris, whoever rally is going to get any more votes out of Dane County. I really wish they would go to La Crosse, Kenosha, places like that, maybe even Green Bay.
If you don't have your base nailed down, rock solid, ready to go, then I don't know what you're doing in Madison talking to people that are already going to vote for you. It sounds good, and maybe part of that strategy is to be on the news not only in Wisconsin, but maybe from a national perspective, focusing on a swing state. But otherwise, you got to go out and reach into, you got to get undecided voters right now. Boy, if you haven't made up your mind now, I don't know what club is going to hit you over the head to make that happen. But rest assured, they're not going to back off. But as far as that U.S. Senate race, the presidential race, it's full bore. Katie bar the door. There's more money coming. Those commercials aren't going to stop until 8:01 on election day.
In this case, in the last 2 weeks or so, it really is those interpersonal interactions with voters that matter more than the ads that somebody might see on their phone.
Yeah, I do. I think that's simply because voters have seen so many ads now for so long, particularly with regard to the presidential and Senate races, that I do think they start to lose their effectiveness. But whereas somebody at your door, particularly a neighbor, making a contact, I think that will be the last thing you'll hear before you go and vote.
Still ahead, a local high school hosts the first senatorial town hall in Madison School District's history.
After the break, what Civics Club members are saying about the event and why one candidate didn't show up.
I'm Joan Balwig, and I'm here to set the record straight. I support birth control, the life and health of mothers, extending postpartum care, and fertility treatments, including IVF. I'm Joan Balwig. I have always fought for Wisconsin moms, and I always will.
Insanity. Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
Kamala wouldn't change a thing? Their weakness invited wars, welfare for illegals, while Americans struggle. Now Kamala wants higher taxes on top of higher prices. We can't afford 4 more years of Kamala.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
How extreme is Todd Novak? He thinks a woman's most private medical decisions should be up to him. Todd Novak has a 100% anti-abortion rating. He supports letting politicians ban abortion with no exceptions for rape, incest, or to save a woman's life. And Todd Novak authored the law to ban abortion here in Wisconsin. Elizabeth Grabe will defend abortion rights. She knows private medical decisions are between women and their doctors.
I can honestly say that Cardinal has never let me down.
Cardinal is the place to go for any type of work that you need done around your home.
The kindness, the efficiency, the professionalism, the respect was amazing.
We were very impressed with their cleanliness.
I definitely recommend Cardinal Heating and Air Conditioning because of the professionalism, the communication they provided.
Cardinal will always be my first call for anything that Cardinal does.
I think we're going to continue to use Cardinal for a long time.
They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. Why hasn't she done it?
For years, radical Kamala Harris created the border crisis. Thousands of accused murderers, rapists, even terrorists pour in. Each crime they commit makes American victims. Innocent victims of Kamala's open border agenda. They were bludgeoned, raped, strangled, stabbed, shot, and murdered. Kamala created the border crisis. She won't fix it now. Make America Great Again, Inc. is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Sarah Kieski, she supports lifting revenue limits, allowing property tax rates to skyrocket unchecked. Kieski's backers want to ban natural gas to heat our homes, driving utility bills through the roof. That's Kieski's record, expensive and extreme.
On Monday, West High School hosted the first senatorial town hall in Madison School District's history.
Members of the Civics Club say this is a long time coming, and our Merrill Hubbard tells us more about the town hall turnout.
The Madison West Civics Club has been planning this senatorial town hall for over a year. They've invited all 4 of the candidates, but only 2 of them were able to make it.
This is strictly a nonpartisan event.
We really wanted to showcase both sides of this argument so that voters, especially young voters who are voting for their first time in this election, would know what they're voting on and what they're voting for.
Clark Schrager is part of the Civics Club and acted as the town hall moderator alongside his peer Ada Lambic.
I've been interested in politics since I was a little kid, like 5th grade. I was describing the Syrian war to my peers.
Ada and Clark asked a series of questions to Democrat Tammy Baldwin and Libertarian Philip Anderson, covering topics like immigration, gun safety, women's rights, and LGBTQ+ rights. Republican Eric Hovde and First American candidate Thomas Leger were not in attendance.
We have contacted all 4 candidates for this. We gave them all an equal opportunity. It's unfortunate that some weren't able to come today.
According to teachers and students at the event, Hovde canceled on Friday 3 days prior to the meeting.
He had a scheduling conflict. It happens. He's in the middle of a big campaign.
I do wish the candidate, Eric Hovde, was here as well to show another perspective.
Students say the door is still open for Hovde for another town hall-styled meeting in the future.
We hope to host all of the candidates before or even after the election. We really value everybody's perspective.
At the town hall, students say some of the candidates' perspectives took them by surprise.
I didn't know that she was a gun owner, that she supported certain bills, or that she supported a former bill by an Oklahoma senator on securing the southern border more so.
As for the Libertarian candidate,
his ideology, a lot of it was that the government is corrupt and can't be trusted.
Even if some of them can't vote yet, students say the town hall sparked their interest in the U.S. Senate position.
I think that hearing that diversity of thought and of ideals is really important because it makes you a more well-rounded voter and a more well-rounded person.
I think I learned that I should educate myself more on the policies of politicians like Senator Baldwin.
Reporting on the West Side, Meryl Hubbard, News 3 Now.
Now, the Hovde team said in a statement, quote, "Our team never confirmed participation in that event. We participate the opportunity, but the schedule just didn't end up working," end quote. Coming up next, Elon Musk's super PAC continues to dole out $1 million to registered voters in swing states.
Plus, we take a reality check on a political ad covering the so-called third rail of American politics.
Save big money with these hot deals at Menards. All prices after 11% rebate. Assorted soup mixes are just $3.49. 6 packs of Bubbler sparkling water, only $5.49. 16 packs of Energizer batteries are $7.99. 2 packs of hand or foot warmers, only 29 cents. Plus, sign up in store for a chance to win a GMC Sierra. Hurry, these hot deals won't last long. Sign up for Menards emails to get more big savings right to your inbox.
Save big money at Menards.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
Donald Trump makes a lot of promises, but we can be sure of one thing. If he wins, he'll ignore all checks that rein in a president's power. It's all in Trump's Project 2025 agenda. What does that mean for you? Higher cost on groceries, cuts to Social Security and Medicare, more tax breaks for billionaires, and a national abortion ban putting women's health at risk. A second Trump term, more unhinged, unstable, and unchecked.
Quartz takes a different approach to health insurance. We know every life well lived is a journey, and we're here to light the way at every step. That's why for 40 years, we've been alongside the doctors and hospitals who know what their communities need. Because they're a part of them. Because we're a part of them. There's a fire burning in all of us. Let's ignite it together. Quartz. Find your spark.
You have a clear choice in this election. Senator Baldwin is a 38-year career politician. I'm a businessman and job creator. She supports taxpayer benefits for illegal immigrants. I'll close the border. Tammy wants to put guys and girls sports in their bathrooms. I'll protect our daughters. Senator Baldwin abuses the political system. I'll fight the corruption. I'm Eric Hovde, and I approve this message. I'd be honored to have your vote.
For 52 years, they've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. I did a great service in doing it.
You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women suffering from a miscarriage being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot? The freedom to make decisions about one's own body should not be made by the government.
FFPAC is responsible for the content of this ad.
News 3 Now First Warn Weather is brought to you by Lazy Boy Home Furnishings and Decor.
Discover a shopping and design experience as comfortable as the furniture. Lazy Boy Home Furnishings and Decor. Schedule your free design consultation today.
Welcome back to Live at 4 Battleground, Wisconsin. Every Friday until the election, we're turning Live at 4 into an all-politics show covering campaigns in Wisconsin and across the nation.
Our viewers tell us they want to be more informed before they head to the polls this November. This show is designed to do just that. Let's start with this. Social Security is often called the third rail of American politics. It's an issue candidates often avoid taking stances on.
The issue is the subject of a new political ad. Political reporter Will Keneally has this reality check.
We're going to take a look at this Baldwin campaign ad making claims about Eric Hovde's stance on Social Security.
Eric Hovde has a plan to slash Social Security 28%, Medicare 25%, veterans benefits 40%.
This is partly true, but leaves out some information. The Baldwin campaign is using some comments that Eric Hovde made on public radio in Milwaukee.
So you've said you believe the government has been spending recklessly and needs to decrease the national debt by returning federal spending to 2019 levels. What programs are you intending to cut to make that happen?
Well, it's very simple. All you do is you pull all government programs back to 19 levels.
If we look specifically at Social Security here, that needs some clarification. Going back down to 2019 numbers would mean about a 28% cut, according to Congressional Budget Office projections. But Hovde has said he would not cut benefits for existing recipients. In the past, he has advocated for increasing the retirement age for younger generations. In response to the Baldwin ad, Hovde says that the changes that he's pushing for would only impact people under 40. I'm Will Keneally with this reality check.
Thank you, Will. This will be an expensive race for the two Senate campaigns. According to the latest numbers from Ad Impact Politics, both the Democratic and Republican campaigns have reserved an additional $31 million in television ads. As we get closer to Election Day, the battle for control over Congress is getting intense. New federal campaign filings reveal Democratic candidates have raised more money than Republicans in almost all of the key congressional races in the first half of the month. Democratic Senate candidates in 10 key races spent about $76 million altogether, while bringing in $49 million in that time period. Republicans spent more than $39 million over 11 races and raised about $28 million. Both parties are now seeing a surge in campaign spending as we head into November.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is now asking the U.S. Supreme Court to remove him from Wisconsin ballots. He argues Wisconsin is violating his First Amendment rights by keeping his name as a choice for voters. Kennedy suspended his independent presidential campaign in August and endorsed former President Donald Trump. This was done after the deadline to get his name removed from the ballot. Kennedy is attempting to get his name removed from ballots in battleground states, but has simultaneously told supporters they can vote for him in other states where third-party and independent candidates are unlikely to influence the outcome. And Tesla CEO Elon Musk doesn't seem to care that his $1 million voter sweepstakes in battleground states might be illegal. Earlier this week, the Department of Justice warned Musk's pro-Trump super PAC that gives prizes to registered voters could be against federal election law. The super PAC gave away $2 million on Thursday. The voters were in Michigan and Wisconsin. The prizes go to random registered voters who sign a petition supporting the First and Second Amendments.
I think for new voters who might register to vote, and this being the inducement, like I can have an opportunity to get $1 million, it certainly feels like that kind of exchange. At the same time, the United States Supreme Court has been very narrow in how it's construed bribery statutes.
Now, Musk has promised to hand out $1 million each day until Election Day to registered voters in certain swing states. One election law analyst for CNN says voters who sign the petition could potentially face legal trouble for accepting money in exchange for their vote. It should be noted the DOJ has not accused any winners or signers of the petition of any wrongdoing.
The House GOP committee that oversees elections is hiring at least 2 former Trump officials who were involved in the 2020 fake elector scheme. Earlier this month, committee Republicans hired former Trump campaign attorney Joshua Findlay to serve as a consultant on election law matters. The committee previously hired Thomas Lane, another Trump official who served as a backup fake elector in Arizona in 2020. A committee spokesperson said Findlay's contract ends on November 30th and is only related to the Election Observer Program.
Well, after the break, more than 120 Wisconsin school districts are putting a referendum on the ballot this fall.
Coming up, we'll take a look at one of those districts and what's at stake for the community.
Insanity.
doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
Kamala wouldn't change a thing? Their weakness invited wars, welfare for illegals, while Americans struggle. Now Kamala wants higher taxes on top of higher prices. We can't afford 4 more years of Kamala.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
This is a hallway. Doesn't evoke much feeling. But to those facing cancer or a complex condition, it feels like relief. Because all the doctors, treatments, and technology you've been fighting to find, they're all right here, under one roof, connected by hallways instead of highways. East Park Medical Center, coming soon. UW Health, remarkable.
They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. Why hasn't she done it?
4 years, radical Kamala Harris created the border crisis. Thousands of accused murderers, rapists, even terrorists pour in. Each crime they commit makes American victims. Innocent victims of Kamala's open border agenda. They were bludgeoned, raped, strangled, stabbed, shot, and murdered. Kamala created the border crisis. She won't fix it now. Make America Great Again, Inc. is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Eric Hovde's trying to scare you. The truth is, no sex change surgeries take place on minors in Wisconsin. 0. And Tammy Baldwin didn't give funding to a transgender clinic. It's actually a youth homeless shelter. Eric Hovde knows that. But he's a billionaire banker who thinks he can lie about anything, including falsely attacking Tammy Baldwin by questioning her personal life. Wisconsin's better than Eric Hovde.
I'm Tammy Baldwin, and I approve this message.
My husband and I were elated to find out that we would be having another baby. But after many tests, my doctors agreed that we had to terminate the pregnancy. It was the worst day of my life. You should know that Eric Hovde supports laws that stop me and my doctor from making that decision. And that's a ban with no exceptions in cases of rape or incest. It's a ban that could turn doctors into criminals. He opposes abortion, period.
WIN Senate is responsible for the content of this ad.
A terrifying scene unfolding today at Westtown Mall as a gun was drawn and fired. We'll have continuing coverage at 5 with the latest from the Madison Police Department's investigation.
A picture-perfect fall weekend with a little patchy frost a possibility. But when will our temperatures soar up to 80 degrees and strong storms back in the forecast? Add the details at 5.
And ahead at 6, Minnesota's First Lady Gwen Walz shares the personal cost of life on the national stage, from her in vitro journey to the pressures of the campaign, tonight at 6.
Welcome back. A number of school districts will have referenda on the ballot this November.
That includes West Salem, who are looking for approval for not 1, but 2 referendums. News 8's now Allison Fergott explains.
West Salem voters will have the option to approve a $3.5 million recurring operational referendum and a $28 million capital improvement referendum. School officials say both referendums are important to the district's future. After surveying West Salem families on community needs, the district is asking for support on 2 referenda, totaling more than $31 million.
The board feels strongly about continuing West Salem to be an excellent district. Having that money to support those programs is going to allow us to continue.
The operational referendum is designed to maintain current district programs.
Obviously, with the inflationary costs that we all have, those same costs affect us here within the school district.
The district successfully passed an operational referendum in 2022, but that funding will end next year, and the needs aren't going away. This time, the district is asking for a recurring referendum, so they don't have to go back to the voters.
The recurring means that, obviously that the $3.5 million that we're asking will go on, as long as we need that.
Reber says the school board will be able to increase the tax levy up to that $3.5 million level, but they don't have to keep it at that level every year. Ultimately, he says the operational referendum is important to maintain programs for students and retain staff.
We want to make sure that our community and our students get the highest possible education they can possibly get, and we feel that our teachers are the ones that provide that for them.
The goal to provide the highest possible education is also the motivation behind the $28 million capital referendum. The project includes creating more gym space at the elementary school and building a new career and technical education center at the high school.
We know that not every student goes on to a four-year college, and we want to make sure that we're providing college, career, and life-ready opportunities for all of our students.
The district says if the operational referendum passes, property taxes would stay the same. But if the capital referendum passes, taxes would increase $110 per $100,000 of property value. Although residents could see a tax increase, Reber is confident the two questions will pass.
I think, our community supports our school district. They've supported what we've done.
Now, the referendums are not dependent on each other, which means you can vote for one and vote against the other. But ultimately, school district officials say voting for both would be the best for students. Reporting in West Salem, Allison Fergit, News 8 Now.
Thank you, Allison.
Referenda are a common occurrence statewide. According to Viroqua Superintendent Tom Burkhalter, 192 districts have asked 241 questions in the last 12 months.
Still ahead on Live at 4, a new survey shows Americans are going through a lot of anxiety over the future of the nation. Yeah.
Well, when we come back, what health experts say you can do to cope with the stress as Election Day creeps closer.
The other side is lying to scare you. Truth is, Joan Ballweg is a champion for women's health care. She fought hard to expand healthcare access for postpartum moms and supports access for IVF and birth control. We're voting for Joan Ballweg because she votes for women like us.
Insanity. Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
Kamala wouldn't change a thing? Their weakness invited wars, welfare for illegals, while Americans struggle. Now Kamala wants higher taxes on top of higher prices. We can't afford 4 more years of Kamala.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
When my husband got throat cancer, it wasn't just a health crisis. It was a financial one for my family. And that's something rural families know all too well. Joan Ballweg voted against expanding affordable health care for rural families and against bringing drug costs down. And that's one reason I decided to run against her. I'm Sarah Kieski, and I'm running for state senate. Because when someone you love needs medical care, the last thing you should have to worry about is how to pay for it.
Meet Sarah Kieski. You might see her walking around in her Woke Genius t-shirt. Radical, just like the groups that support her. Kieski supporters want to defund the police. Her allies want to give voting rights to illegals and make it easier for felons to vote. And Kieski is backed by a group that wants to let criminals out early. Want to know where Sarah Kieski stands? Just look at the company she keeps.
How extreme is Todd Novak? He thinks a woman's most private medical decisions should be up to him. Todd Novak has a 100% anti-abortion rating. He supports letting politicians ban abortion with no exceptions for rape, incest, or to save a woman's life. And Todd Novak authored the law to ban abortion here in Wisconsin. Elizabeth Grabe will defend abortion rights. She knows private medical decisions are between women and their doctors.
For 54 years, they were trying to get Roe v. Wade terminated, and I did it.
He did it. It was pretty devastating.
He is bragging about the rights that he stole from American women, and Trump is promising to do more. In Project 2025,
they are restricting birth control,
tracking pregnant women, enforcing a nationwide abortion ban. The government should get out of my business. Stay out of my business.
That's not the government's business.
In America, women make their own decisions.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
Sarah Kieski, she supports lifting revenue limits, allowing property tax rates to skyrocket unchecked. Kieski's backers want to ban natural gas to heat our homes, driving utility bills through the roof. That's Kieski's record, expensive and extreme.
With Election Day less than 2 weeks away, here's the thing. A new survey shows Americans are stressed about the future of the nation, the economy, and the presidential election.
Let's all just take a deep breath.
Take a deep breath.
Dina Demetrius has more on how to cope.
Andrew Payton says he's stressed.
It doesn't help to have your phone buzzing with like headlines and stuff. So there's always like kind of like a background radiation of stress happening.
It's something many Americans are feeling as Election Day approaches.
I do believe a lot of it, for my own personal stress, does trickle down from
the political landscape of the last several years.
According to the American Psychological Association, more than 7 in 10 adults say the future of the nation is a significant stressor, with the economy and the 2024 presidential election right behind.
Over 70% of people are concerned about election violence or violence coming out of the election, and over half saying that they are concerned that this election could mean the end of democracy. And what's striking about that is that both Democrats and Republicans are not that different on those two issues.
Dr. Arthur Evans says despite the stress, more than 60% of adults are feeling hopeful about the change this election will bring. Health experts say it's important to find ways to cope with stress, and that starts with eating right, exercising, and getting enough sleep.
For election-related stress, being engaged in the political process is an important way to manage our stress. Limiting the amount of information that you're taking in, particularly when you're tired, is also another very important coping strategy.
Steve Beneda is already taking that advice.
I don't really follow the media much. I don't have much of social media. In fact, I have no social media. Faith is the number one thing, what keeps me central.
Finding balance between being informed and not overwhelmed. Dina Demetrius, CBS News, Los Angeles.
Now, the survey also shows more than half of Americans hope this election will lead to a more inclusive society. There's more on Live at 4 when we come back.
Insanity. Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
Kamala wouldn't change a thing? Their weakness invited wars, welfare for illegals, while Americans struggle. Now Kamala wants higher taxes on top of higher prices. We can't afford 4 more years of Kamala.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
This is Senator Tammy Baldwin. This is her life partner, Maria Brisbane, a Wall Street exec who makes millions advising the super rich how to make money off industries Tammy regulates. Tammy doesn't get home to Wisconsin most weekends. She'd rather be in New York at Maria's $7 million condo. That's why New Yorkers have given Tammy over $1.3 million. Tammy Baldwin's not Wisconsin's senator anymore. She's the 3rd senator from New York.
I'm Eric Hovde, and I approve this message.
When it comes to your critical medical decisions, you should have the final say. But extreme politician Joan Ballweg says you're wrong. She supports criminalizing abortion even after rape and incest. Or to save the life of the mother, Ballweg would jail doctors for giving life-saving care. And Ballweg even wrote the law that could deny women access to birth control. Joan Ballweg would put extreme politicians in charge of your body and put all Wisconsin women in danger.
Sometimes the smallest cracks can cause the biggest chills. This fall, watch out for The Draft.
For quality windows, siding, and doors, call 866 for Feldco.
For 54 years, they were trying to get Roe v. Wade terminated, and I did it.
He did it. It was pretty devastating.
He is bragging about the rights that he stole from American women. And Trump is promising to do more. In Project 2025.
They are restricting birth control.
Tracking pregnant women, enforcing a nationwide abortion ban. The government should get out of my business. Stay out of my business.
That's not the government's business.
In America, women make their own decisions.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
I believe something's happening on November 5th. Does that sound familiar?
I've heard something about this.
Oh, there we go. That's when eyes around the world will be on the United States as Americans decide who will become their next president. But some of those international eyes are already paying attention to this election.
There are 64 international election observers spread out across the country right now, including 2 right here in Battleground, Wisconsin. I sat down with them here at the News 3 Now studios last week. Take a look.
We've tried the cheese curds.
When Thomas Leska and Indiana Falez found out they'd be making their way to Wisconsin, they did their research.
I found out that this is a state that has, a considerable history of German immigration. And I could already, smell in the air that this would involve beer.
But they're here for more than just the delicacies. They're here for democracy.
I think that if every country were left alone with their own, democratic problems, it would be much harder for them to solve it, because sometimes to have that, external view on your own situation is so super helpful.
Leska and Falez are part of an international team of election observers from the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe.
This is an organization that is made up of the governments of 57 countries, including the United States of America.
They observe elections across the globe.
I've been involved in observing elections in the past 20 years in 25 different countries.
And create reports and recommendations based on what they see. For example, here's what they found in the U.S. in 2020.
The 3rd November general elections were competitive and well managed, despite legal uncertainties and logistical challenges.
They'll be in Wisconsin for the last month of the U.S. general elections, talking to stakeholders about the state of our democracy.
We see if the secrecy of the vote is respected, if all political parties can campaign without intimidation, if the government is using public resources to promote one party or the other.
Those stakeholders include the media. Leska and Falez even stopped by the News 3 Now studio to learn about our experience covering the election. It's not easy work, and they have to spend weeks away from their families to do it. But they say watching democracy in action and making sure it stays healthy is worth it.
The recommendations we make are followed up on. So that feels like you are making a contribution.
In developing countries, people are really eager to vote and participate in elections, whereas in northern countries, rich countries, people tend not to participate as much, and they don't realize the privilege it is to be able to cast your ballot and participate. I think it's my commitment as a citizen to promote democracy around the world.
And they aren't messing around. They tried those cheese curds right away.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, they knew. They did their research. Like
they
I
did.
Said.
Look at that.
Their research. They could smell the beer in the air.
Yes, as one tends to do. There are OSCE election observers stationed in every state except Alaska and Hawaii for this election.
Yep, and they'll stick around for about a week after Election Day, and they'll release that full report next year. We'll be right back.
Insanity. Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
Kamala wouldn't change a thing? Their weakness invited wars, welfare for illegals, while Americans struggle. Now Kamala wants higher taxes on top of higher prices. We can't afford 4 more years of Kamala.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
We need leadership focused on addressing rising costs, prioritizing quality schools. But Elizabeth Grabi, endorsed by a group that would take power away from local school boards and put state bureaucrats in charge. And Grabi's backed by extremists who wanted to defund the police. Elizabeth Grabi, dangerously out of touch. Todd Novak is our trusted independent voice, helping families with rising costs, delivering funding for local law enforcement and emergency services, investing in rural broadband and our schools. Todd Novak for Assembly.
You have a clear choice in this election. Senator Baldwin is a 38-year career politician. I'm a businessman and job creator. She supports taxpayer benefits for illegal immigrants. I'll close the border. Tammy wants to put guys and girls sports in their bathrooms. I'll protect our daughters. Senator Baldwin abuses the political system. I'll fight the corruption. I'm Eric Hovde, and I approve this message. I'd be honored to have your vote.